Hi friends, my name is Andrew Connard. I'm the pastor of Susanna Wesley United Methodist Church, and welcome to week number 4 of our Leader Development Book Club, taking a look at the book Canoeing the Mountains by Tod Bolsinger. If you haven't picked up my copy, I invite you to do so. You can still catch up on our YouTube channel. Go back and look at the videos I produced over the last several weeks as we've been moving through chapter by chapter. And we've been using a tool to help us pay attention to the text and maybe learn from it in new ways. And the first is these symbols give us an idea about what to look for, how to clue in, and maybe process what we're reading. The first is a question mark, and that's when you've learned something new, or when the text provides you with a new question that you want to learn more about. The second symbol is a sun or a light, and that's when something in the text sheds perspective or gives insight into something that's going on in your life or in the life of our community. And finally, the arrow points a direction or gives guidance about how I might act differently or more faithfully in the days ahead. So today we're taking a closer look at chapter number 4. The title is Competence and Credibility. And for me, this was really just an affirmation about how to do the job that God has called me to do. And for me, the question mark, something new that I've learned or finding new questions, started with a couple of these words. He writes, stewardship precedes leadership. Biblically, stewardship is about faithfully protecting and preserving what is most important, about growing and developing the potential of everything and everyone under one's care. And then he goes on to write, usually before a community of faith will even consider undergoing costly change, there must be a sense that leadership is doing everything within their power and their job description to be as effective as possible. Now this was a new learning for me because it put in context some of the work that I've been trying to do as still a relatively new pastor here at Susanna Wesley, to really just do the very best job that I can. I hope that I am able to do this and have been doing it really well. But what was new for me was the insight that being able to do your job, your current job, being a steward of what is a requirement or a prerequisite for really leading change or the community into new and different ways. So that was the new connection for me. It's important for leaders not only to do their job well, because that's important in and of itself, and also when we are moving into uncharted territory, it is helpful for the leader to be able to act with competence and credibility as we prepare to go into uncharted territory together. So again, I am hopeful. I do my very best effort that I am offering that in leadership in ways that are familiar and competent for who we are today as Susanna Wesley. And my hope is that we'll be able to move together into the new thing that God is calling it to based on some of those experiences. What shed perspective, the sun symbol for me in this chapter, gave perspective in my life is, again, a little bit more detail about how to live competently as a pastoral leader or as a leader in the life of our congregation. He writes there's 3 main keys: competent stewardship of scriptures and tradition, which means being faithful to the biblical text and our traditions, both as United Methodists and our traditions at Susanna Wesley. Competent stewardship, upholding, maintaining, guiding forward, and keeping them connected. Competent stewardship of souls and communities. Of course, as leaders in the life of the church, it's not just about scriptures, it's not just about tradition, it's about people. And there are individual people who sometimes our souls are thriving and they are filled with the life of the Holy Spirit, and other times souls are suffering and feel quite distant from God. So offering competent stewardship of souls and communities. Gatherings of people, this is who we are as Susanna Wesley, building diverse Christian communities where God's love is in action. These diverse Christian communities come in many forms, and part of the role of our leaders is to steward them well, to care for people and relationships and give good attention to them as we live our life together. And finally, the third one he gives here is competent stewardship of teams and tasks. Teams and tasks, the organization itself. There is administrative work. There are committees that help keep things going, that accomplish things that just need to be done to keep the organization moving forward. He notes in the chapter that some pastors have a struggle with this part of stewardship, and I think for me it's quite the opposite. This is one of the areas that I find real strength and joy. It's one of the ways that I'm gifted, and I have perhaps more work to do on some of the others. But these three areas really gained perspective and gave some words to what does it mean to be competent as a Christian leader, and particularly as a pastoral leader. So I hope that you'll consider what this might look like in your own life as you seek to lead people connected with Susanna Wesley. Competent stewardship of scriptures and tradition, souls and communities, teams and tasks. And finally, the arrow for this chapter that points a way ahead for me is from these words. Tod Bolsinger writes this: "We need to make sure that when our attempts at innovation go awry, it's because we have something to learn and not because we've mishandled an otherwise good idea. How do we try things out that are new and then make sure to learn from them? It's not a matter of trying things new and failing over and over, because that doesn't do anyone any good. It's frustrating for leaders and for the community. However, if we can fail forward, if we can learn from new things we've tried and say, okay, what are things that we want from this new experience? What do we want to make sure and do again? And what do we want to make sure and do differently? Or what are possibilities that we may not have even imagined before that we might try in the future?" This idea of learning from our failures is one that can be powerful and one that's sometimes a little bit scary as a church community. We don't want to fail very much. I don't want to fail very much. And yet, this is one of the practices, one of the learning from our failures. This practice can be so essential into moving into uncharted territory. So this chapter about competence and credibility was an encouragement for me. It helped remind me about some of my callings as a pastoral leader, and I invite you to consider for you in your leadership role with Susanna Wesley or with your church community, what have you found in this chapter that was new for you, that answered some questions you may have, that shed perspective or insight onto what's going on in your life at the moment, or that pointed the direction about how you might live faithfully or act to lead your community forward into the future that God has in mind. I'm really glad that you're connected with this Leadership Development Book Club. Next week, we'll be taking a closer look at Chapter 5, Preparing for the Unknown. And until then, I hope you have a great day.